I miss the Michelle that I fell in love with. I'm not sure I miss the Michelle I broke up with.
Nayte speaks his truth on the Michelle breakup. Hannah Brown attends her brother's wedding. And why was Gabby chosen over Rachel for Dancing with the Stars? Hey guys, welcome back to a shared news Bachelor headlines of the week breakdown. We are here to get into all of the latest Bachelor Nation tea. Before we do that, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel. I'm your host and Bachelor expert, Zachary Reality, with the one and only Blakely McHugh. Blakely, how are you doing today? Happy Friday, and which story are you most excited to kind of dive into today?
Happy Friday. Super excited that it's the end of the week. I'm down in San Diego and we are getting some rain and we desperately need it. So it feels like it's a little bit of like I'm actually getting some fall feeling, which I love. Super excited to talk about the whole Nayte and Michelle of it all. I think that's probably like the biggest story in Bachelor Nation right now. Well, I guess also Erich is as well. But a lot of people are talking about the Nayte and Michelle breakup, that interview with Nick Viall. So I'm excited to get into that. I feel like you probably have a lot of commentary and I have some thoughts as well. And I think it'll be a good discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to the podcast yesterday morning and it was just very interesting because I can't remember ever hearing Nayte on a podcast that wasn't Bachelor affiliated. We know that the Bachelor, affiliated podcasts are a lot of fluff, a lot of surface level questions.
Yes.
So the fact that we got to see Nayte in a different environment, Nick was definitely able to kind of pull some tea out of him, as well as our shared news host, Allison, who was a part of that interview as well. So let's kind of talk a little bit about it because Nayte shared his side of the story. He said that when he proposed to Michelle on her season of The Bachelorette, he was 1000% sure it was going to work out. He said it was really good for a little bit, but things started to drift after a couple months and miscommunication happened and trust was lost. And they kept arguing. They actually almost broke up 3 times before they ever broke up. And Nayte even admitted to not being present at Wengo Tango as they got into a fight right before going to that red carpet, which you actually interviewed them on, Blakely. And now a lot of other Bachelor accounts are starting to share your interview. And I remember watching it and telling you a couple months ago, I'm like, something seemed off. But you were on the carpet and doing your thing, so you maybe weren't noticing because you were just trying to be professional and, get some juice. But now looking back at it and hearing him, the fact that he actually addressed that specific interview, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I remember us talking about it and I sent you the interview and you're like, their body language is off. Like there just is something that's not right here, where I was just, since I was there, my mind wasn't even paying attention to that. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm excited to talk to them. So I totally missed the body language of it all. Are we, did we forget the wedding ring tonight? Are we making people talk?
Honestly, we should have left it at home. Hey. But I wouldn't be surprised because there have been times where I take it off to shower, right? I don't want to, I'm putting lotion.
You're doing the dishes.
Doing whatever it is, right? And I take it off and then, I don't know, he calls me, I get distracted and hey.
One thing leads to another and then you're finding out that you're no longer together online.
Yeah, which is so weird. I'm like, I swear I just talked to him a few minutes ago, but maybe something changed real quick.
Maybe. But looking back, it's just now that now that Nayte is specifically addressing that Wengo Tango night, Nayte really didn't answer a lot of questions. He didn't have a lot to say during the interview. I feel like Michelle did most of the talking. I kind of, after we've heard all of this, going back and watching it, you can see that Nayte is definitely not engaged whatsoever. He's off looking to the side. He looks uncomfortable. And it's just kind of crazy that literally he's mentioning this event that I talked to them at. And in the interview, I was like, what's the plans? And Michelle's saying, we're thinking maybe in the fall is when we're going to move in together. It threw me when when she gave, kind of a specificity of a time period, because if you're in that state of mind, you would think you'd be more vague.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Nayte addressed not moving to Minnesota. He said that they originally were planning for him to move in March, but because they started, arguing in January and things started to kind of drift, they wanted to figure out, or Nayte really wanted to figure out their issues first before moving in together and making it official. And then they feel stuck in a lease or in a house that they were supposed to buy as Bachelor Nation gave them the $200,000. So they kept on pushing it off and tried to work out their issues. He did move to Minnesota for a month. And he said that they were really just arguing a lot, which is not necessarily the image that was presented. And my takeaway from the interview is that they actually were kind of out of it, the relationship, months before they even announced it. He said they started fighting in January. And I think that they probably felt pressure to stay together because of the franchise, because of the fans, because of the opportunity, and because they were engaged
because
and they wanted to do everything they could to try and make it work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it didn't work. Nayte broke down on the podcast. He started crying, and, you know, he still wishes the world of Michelle. He did kind of allude to the fact that maybe she was DMing like a certain country singer that kind of made him lose his trust in her. Do you think Nayte was trying to throw Michelle under the bus, or do you think he was just trying to justify that there are two people in this relationship, because he did take all of the blame?
I think that I really don't think that he was trying to throw Michelle under the bus. I know he's been given this kind of F-boy portrayal. He's admitted that, you know, the tattoos, the jewelry, kind of just his whole vibe and his energy. People have always put him in this box of, you know, maybe being a player, maybe being an F-boy. That's not really the vibe that I've gotten from him. I feel like that, you know, at least when I met him in person, he was, I mean, as much as he was, there clearly was something going on, I felt like he was kind. I got good energy from him. And even, you know, hearing some of the snippets from what we've heard during this interview, it doesn't seem that he speaks about Michelle in a negative way. You know, if she was DMing somebody else, he would have full reign to speak about her negatively. I think that he's probably trying to just show that it takes two to Wango Tango, if you will, and that he, you know, this breakup wasn't just all on him. It was, you know, between the both of them. I'm sure there were things that he did as well that Michelle would probably touch on and share that maybe he's not sharing. But I think that, yeah, he's just trying to show, like, this wasn't just all me. It's not because I'm a douchebag, you know, this is just the relationship didn't work. And there were things on the other side too.
For sure. And I mean, he really gave like his full side of the story. I remember when Michelle talked about the breakup on Bachelor Happy Hour a couple months ago, she was very vague. She answered like 3 questions and she didn't say much. So now I'm wondering that now since Nayte has told all, is she going to want to speak out about this, especially now that there's this like country singer saga involved?
Well, also, like, kind of like what you mentioned earlier, since she was on the Bachelor Happy Hour podcast, the podcasts that are affiliated with The Bachelor are much more fluff, less in-depth, less, you know, hard-hitting. So maybe there's the difference, too, is, like, you can kind of just get away with, like, not going in-depth or not having to really answer questions when it has to do with The Bachelor versus Nick Viall's podcast. Like, I mean, Nick's not letting anybody off easy. Like, we've all
Michelle's
seen his
host.
TikToks.
She's the host
well,
of Bachelor
then even
Happy
more.
Hour.
Yeah, but yeah, even more for her to like not have to say, you know, not have to answer things she doesn't want to answer. Right?
True. And maybe
it's
she'll
even easier cop out in my mind. I will say what I thought was like, ooh, like when I so I kind of read about it, and somebody like, you know, kind of quoted a lot of the things he said. But when Nayte said, I think it was to the degree of like, I miss the Michelle that I met in the beginning or I fell in love with. I don't miss the Michelle, like who she is now.
I broke up with.
I know I'm saying it incorrectly. Yeah, with the Michelle I broke up with. And I was like, oh, that was kind of like
a big statement.
That was a little jabby. I mean, I'm sure it's how he feels, but I was like, oh gosh, when I read that.
Yeah. So I actually think Michelle might say something about this, but I think if she does, it will only drag it on longer. And I mean, think about all the Bachelor relationships who broke up and then we never stopped talking about it. Kelly and Peter, Blake and Katie. I kind of hope that Michelle just like lets this one go, but
John,
I think she also might want to, you know, share more. So we'll keep updated. I mean, we do have the Bachelorette finale coming up in the next couple of weeks, so that's kind of going to consume everyone's minds. But let's put an end to this Nayte situation. And we wish them both the best. And I'm glad that we were able to kind of hear his side of the story. And we'll stay tuned to maybe we'll hear more of hers. I want to get into Hannah Brown. Her brother Patrick just got married last weekend to Jed Wyatt's ex. So Hannah Brown was the Bachelorette a few years ago, and she chose Jed Wyatt, and they got engaged on her season, but ended up breaking up shortly after the engagement, after the final rose, because Jed's ex-girlfriend came out and exposed Jed for not even breaking up with this girl, Hailey, before he went on The Bachelorette and only going on the show for fame to promote his music career. And that girl was Hailey Stevens, who ended up dating Hannah Brown's brother, Patrick, shortly after. And after over 2 years of dating Patrick, and Hailey got married over the weekend, and Hannah Brown did end up attending the wedding. Now, a lot of people were unsure if she was going to go to the wedding because she did say in an interview over a year ago while promoting her book, God Bless the Mess, that she wasn't necessarily on board and supportive with her brother's girlfriend, but he just wants her to be happy. And since then, they got engaged, they got married. Hannah went to the wedding. She was not a part of the bachelorette party. What are your thoughts on this mess, or is this just a happy ending?
I mean, it's a little weird, but I don't feel like there should be any negativity towards, like, between the women, right? Like, it's not like the ex-girlfriend of Jed did anything wrong. And, you know, it's not like she cheated on, you know, are you, what is
I don't
that
know.
face?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a sticky situation just because Hannah Brown was engaged to Jed, and Jed left to go to the Bachelorette with a scorned ex or not ex behind him who ended up being Hailey Stevens that married Hannah Brown's brother. So it's just a really sticky triangle. I understand why Hannah wanted to kind of take her time, maybe warming up to Hailey and Patrick, especially because Patrick and Hannah have actually had ups and downs in their relationship for years. Because I read Hannah Brown's book, but either way, I'm glad that she ended up going to the wedding and supporting her brother.
But if anything, I feel like it would be Hailey that has weird feelings towards Hannah, not the other way around, because Hailey was the one who was left for Hannah. Hannah wasn't left for Hailey, correct?
But that's not Hannah's fault. She was the Bachelorette. Jed came on her season,
I know,
and then they had no contact to the outside world.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, like, I just don't think that there should be weirdness between the two girls, like, because, like, at least what it seems like is Hannah has weirdness towards Hailey because Hailey is Jed's ex, and there was a whole thing with Jed, right? But I don't think that if there was going to be weirdness, I felt like it should be reversed, not Hannah towards her.
I think it's always weird when you kind of share the same ex, especially now that they're sister-in-laws. So it is a little sticky, but it also has been a few years. And, you know, Hannah is now in a happy relationship with her boyfriend, Adam, that, you know, she might get engaged to very soon. They do share a dog together and live together. And Jed, on the other hand, is now engaged to a new girl, Ellen. So he was not at the wedding. He's not a part of this equation. But it seems like, you know, Hailey and Patrick, they really were together for like over 2 years before they even got engaged and married. So it's not like they rushed into this. It's not like it isn't real because they've been together for a while and they took their time and they genuinely met in the weirdest circumstances. So
do we know how they met, Zach?
I think it was just like through Instagram DM.
Okay.
When the whole situation was happening. I mean, this was a really big like scandal at the time in Bachelor Nation. Like people still cannot get over it. But I think it's kind of a happy ending for everyone. I mean, everyone is now in happy relationships.
Agreed.
So I think sometimes messes just happen when you're in your early and mid 20s in relationships, and now everyone seems to be, you know, close to 30, early 30s, and they've kind of sorted their stuff out. So honestly, all hail everybody involved in the situation. Do you have any other final thoughts, or are you ready to move on to our next topic?
Ready to move on.
Okay, so we got to talk about Gabby joining Dancing with the Stars instead of Rachel. So this shocked a lot of fans. Why are they choosing Gabby over Rachel? And then a lot of people are like, well, we can't have them compete again after what happened this season on The Bachelorette. So Gabby is set to join the 31st season of Dancing with the Stars on Disney Plus with her partner Val. And lots of fans are wondering why they chose Gabby over Rachel. And I think, in my opinion, it could have something to do with the ending. So it's been highly speculated that Gabby and Erich are going to get engaged, especially because he is the only guy left on the show. And after seeing the trailer for the finale, we're assuming that Rachel gets engaged to Tino, but then there is all of this drama that could have happened after filming where they could possibly break up and Rachel could be left empty and brokenhearted, which would be so sad after this experience for her. So it's possible that Dancing and Disney wanted to choose Gabby considering she is in a relationship, and that could, you know, people want to see the love story continued. So do you think there's any validity to that, or why do you think Gabby was chosen?
Well, I think Gabby was vocal in wanting to do something like this. I know that Gabby and Rachel did an interview with E! News where Gabby said she would love it. Rachel said she wouldn't really care. Like, it's not really her thing. Like, she would love to see Gabby on it. But then she also said something to the degree of, like, you know, if it was offered, then, like, that would be really cool. But I don't think Rachel really cared about it. And I think Gabby did. I mean, Gabby's obviously a dancer. She was the Denver Broncos cheerleader, I believe, for 5 years. She's a trained dancer. So this is like totally up her alley. I don't know that Rachel really cared so much for it. So I feel like that's more of maybe where it came from in my mind. If anything, if they're basing it off of how it ends and what you were just saying, speculating that maybe things go awry with Tino afterwards, like if Rachel's left empty-handed, then maybe we would want to see her, I feel like, instead of Gabby. So she gets like something good, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Rachel did congratulate Gabby on her Instagram stories just earlier this week.
Yeah.
She's really excited for her. A lot of people thought Michelle was going to do Dancing with the Stars because they usually pick one person from Bachelor Nation all season. I thought it was going to be Michelle for a while when she said she was moving to LA. But they ended up choosing Gabby, and I'm excited to see what Gabby has to offer. Now, there has also been some controversy with Erich this week as he did blackface in high school. A picture resurfaced from his high school yearbook of him dressing up as Jimi Hendrix. Now, this was very, very insensitive and not okay. It did happen a long time ago, so Erich wanted to address it on his Instagram and said that he is forever ashamed of his actions and his behavior and that he wants to take accountability and move forward. What are your thoughts on this situation? Because blackface is, you know, it's racist. There is a lot of history behind it.
Yes.
But Erich was also a teenager and maybe he didn't know better. You know, people are blaming the fact that the yearbook even published it and it could be the environment that he was around. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that there's obviously no place for racism of any kind, no matter what year, whether it was decades ago or it's now. There's no place for that. With saying that, I do think that there's a place for grace because of how, you know, different the times, not that they were much different, but I would say on the time that happened with Erich, you know, although blackface has always been wrong, it wasn't held to the standard that it is today, if that makes sense. And so I don't think people really truly understand. I feel like over the last couple of years, we've really have had an awakening as a country and been much more educated in what is, you know, just plain out wrong and that you don't do. And so I think that there needs to be a little grace had to allow somebody to say that was a mistake and I know it and I would never do it again, and then we move on. There obviously always has to be accountability, especially when it's to something of that degree. But I think that he took accountability and he said that it was wrong, and you know, I appreciated his response, and I also feel like I appreciated the public's response. Overall, what I've seen is a lot of people were like, he needs to address it. He needs to take accountability. And if he does that and he does it in the proper way, then we can move on. We don't need to have this cancel culture because everybody does make mistakes. But it's important that accountability is taken.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably going to address it after the final rose. I can't imagine them glazing over that. You know, this is kind of, you know, giving Rachel Kirkconnell flashbacks because that was a whole racial scandal a few years ago with the whole Chris Harrison situation when Rachel Kirkconnell attended a plantation party. Now, obviously, it is two different situations. You know, Erich was doing blackface, and I think that this could just be a learning experience for everybody. You know, this is the time to research blackface, research the origin and the history behind it, and we can all kind of use Erich as an example. I'm glad that he took accountability. I think that that's the first step. You know, it was a long time ago. And I think as long as he proves to everyone and shows everyone that he has learned from the situation, he knows how serious it is, you know, he'll have that opportunity after the final rose when they do a sit down. And then, you know, we'll see what happens. But it also is a, you know, discussion for the Bachelor franchise that things like this keep on happening. And I don't know if it's just because it's the most popular show in the world and there's such a spectacle on it that everyone wants to dig up everyone's high school yearbooks, or if it's because there is some, you know, deep-rooted racism in the Bachelor franchise. I mean, it took them a really long time to even have a diverse lead. And we still don't even know what the future of the franchise holds or who the next lead will be.
Yeah. I mean, my thought on that is, you know, I think that the Bachelor franchise does still have a lot of work to do. I mean, we still don't see a very, very diverse contestants when it comes to, you know, the 30 men or women who are usually vying for the lead's, you know, attention. I feel like they've obviously been better, but we still haven't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that we've had an Asian lead yet. That's a lot of reason why, people have been rooting for Ethan. So there's still a lot of work to be done. Ethan from this season, isn't that his name?
Ethan from this season. Yeah, he's getting a lot of love from Bachelor Nation.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of people also, I feel like, kind of ridicule, the Bachelor franchise because they're like, well, are you not doing your due diligence in the background checks
Casting.
or, looking into people's exactly. But my thought to that is only a bit of a counter here is like, are they supposed to go find the people's yearbooks? I mean, there's got to be at some point you're doing a lot to look into a background, right? If that yearbook is not digitalized, the only way they're getting that yearbook is by requesting it from the school or finding somebody. That seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it wasn't on social media until, it actually came up on Reddit where people, I guess somebody went to high school with Erich and had the picture and posted it. So that's kind of how it became a topic of conversation. And either way, this is a learning lesson for Erich and for all of us. And it's wrong, and we know it's wrong, and Erich now knows it's wrong. So we'll see how the conversation plays out on After the Final Rose. Before I let you go, Blakely, I gotta ask for your 2 cents on this Tino and Rachel drama, because it's been highly teased that they could broke up. I know we've broke down the trailer so many times, but there's so many things happening on social media.
So Zach,
and
I don't
people
know
are really
the Tino and Rachel drama. I've been trying to keep out of it, so I'm surprised. So I don't even know what it is.
Well, it hasn't played out on TV yet. We only really saw it in the trailer.
You're just basing it off of the trailer.
Speculating. I mean, for the most part, obviously there is a lot of buzz on social media. I've heard things in my camp, but I think what my opinion is that if they do get engaged, maybe Tino's family wasn't as supportive as Tino promised they would be, and that
as
could
he said
possibly
they would be.
that could possibly play into a breakup post-engagement, post-show, which we might see on the finale. We have 2 more weeks of this crazy finale. Yeah, so in the teaser, we saw a couple things from Rachel. She said to someone, you told me things and then you went back on what you said. And then we also saw her in this house, which is definitely not in Mexico, which Tino was also spotted at the same house in the trailer, where she was basically, asking for clarity, asking, why would you do this? So that's why my first thought is that it could have something to do with the family, but there are other people speculating that maybe Tino had another girl, because what else could he have possibly done? Maybe not put effort into the relationship after the show, go back on his word. What do you think?
Maybe he decides he doesn't like her any longer after the real world, because that would be a complete 180. He was all for her. I don't know. I guess I didn't realize that scene is not shot in Mexico, that it's after the engagement. But if that's what happens, I'm going to feel really sad for Rachel. I feel like this girl has had like such a rough time on the Bachelor franchise. She fell in love with Clayton and just had her heart ripped out. She's struggled, I feel like, this whole season. And then if this is her ending, I'm going to feel very sad for her.
She might have to go on Paradise next year, because I want to see Rachel find love after all of this. It's been a journey for her. I've been rooting for her, and I still feel bad for her. The Clayton breakup was so hard for her. So we will definitely be keeping you guys updated on Bachelor Nation. There is 2 more weeks of the finale. It's going to be crazy and explosive. So let us know your predictions for what's going to happen and your thoughts on Michelle, Nayte, Hannah Brown, and her brother in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell before you head out of here. As always, I'm your host, Zachary Reality.
And I'm Blakely McHugh. You can see both of our social media handles on the screen. Make sure you drop by, give us a follow, and say hello, and we will see you next time.
See ya.